The folder hits my desk at 4:47 on a Tuesday. Preston doesn't even look up from his phone. Your position's being eliminated, Callum. Board decision. Inside is a termination agreement and a distribution spreadsheet showing I'm owed $51,000 for 6 years. My 30% equity stake has somehow become 4.7%. There's a footnote about capital rebalancing I never voted on. Security's already walking toward the office. Preston's still scrolling through his phone like I'm not even here. I close the folder without signing. I'll need my attorney to review this. Your access is revoked now, regardless. He finally meets my eyes. Sign it or don't, but you're leaving today. I stand up, walk out past security with the folder under my arm. In my car, I pull out my phone and open a file I've been maintaining for 8 months. Every payment, every invoice, every suspicious vendor. Preston just made a $340,000 mistake. He handed me proof of everything. 6 years ago, we met at a Ballard coffee shop, and Preston had that energy that makes investors write checks. I've got $400,000 in connections across Seattle tech. But I need someone who knows how to actually run a business. I showed him my laptop full of systems I'd spent 3 years building. Cash flow models, vendor protocols, compliance frameworks. This is what keeps companies from imploding. He grinned. I'll close deals. You make sure we can deliver and get paid. We split everything. 3 weeks later, Wade Industries LLC was born. I built every system from scratch while Preston networked. By month 7, we were profitable. By year 2, we hit $3 million in revenue. I never cared that his name was on the door. Never cared that clients thought he ran everything. I just built systems that worked. Systems that documented everything. Every Friday at 4 p.m. we'd meet. He'd talk vision, I'd show him real numbers. Can we afford it? He'd ask before any big decision. I'd tell him yes or no based on data, not dreams. That arrangement worked perfectly until last April, when he hired Connor Prescott without asking me first. That's when I knew our partnership had changed. That's when I started keeping better records. Everyone thought Preston owned Wade Industries outright. I encouraged that assumption, made vendor negotiations simpler when they thought he was the sole decision maker. But behind every handshake Preston made, I'd already run the numbers. Before he promised delivery timelines, I'd confirmed capacity. When he talked growth over expensive lunches, I'd already structured the payment terms. Every decision ran through me first. Not because I needed credit, but because someone had to think past the handshake. Then last April, Preston hired Connor as operations manager at $110,000. Told me after signing the offer letter, I'm expanding leadership, he said. You focus on finance, Connor handles operations. But operations was half my job. Client delivery, vendor coordination, project management. We should have discussed this. Preston's smile went tight. I'm discussing it now. That sentence hung in the air for 3 seconds too long. 2 weeks later, I sat in a Q3 planning meeting where major operational decisions were being made. Connor was presenting. Preston was nodding. Our lead developer was taking notes. I realized halfway through I hadn't been in the earlier meetings. I was hearing about decisions that were already finalized. After the meeting, I checked my email. I wasn't on the thread anymore. Preston calls me into his office on a Thursday in June, and the first thing I notice is he's closed the door. He never closes the door. We need to accelerate how money moves through the system. Less approval friction, more flexibility. I ask what that means specifically. Dual signatures slow us down. I want to add consulting partners who can process certain payments off the main books. Temporary cash flow optimization. Every alarm in my head goes off. Our operating agreement requires dual approval over $50,000. So does our bank. So does our liability insurance. Everyone does this, Cal. It's just streamlining. It's not streamlining. It's violating our foundational documents. His face goes cold. Not angry. Calculating. Maybe you're not built for where we're headed next. I'm built for keeping us legal and solvent. He nods slowly. Right. Of course. I leave his office with my stomach tight. That night, I reread our operating agreement. Section 7.3. All disbursements exceeding $50,000 require authorization from 2 managing members. I wrote that section myself 5 years ago. 2 weeks later, I try accessing our vendor database. Access denied. I call IT. Preston requested security updates. Your permissions are being adjusted. Adjusted. That's corporate speak for removed. My approvals start disappearing without announcement. One day I can authorize vendor payments. The next day those requests route directly to Preston. I'm still copied on confirmations, but I'm not in the approval chain anymore. Then in July, a new line item appears on our expense report. Cascade Strategic Advisors LLC, $22,500. I've never heard of them. No contract in our system. No onboarding paperwork. Just a monthly invoice for business consulting services. I email Preston. Who's Cascade Strategic? I don't have their documentation. He replies 3 days later. Operational consulting, Connor's project. I ask Connor. Preston brought them in. Talk to him. I go back to Preston. I need their W-9 and service agreement for our files. Why? Don't trust me? I trust complete documentation. He never sends it. But $22,500 goes out the next month. And the month after. I Google Cascade Strategic Advisors. No website. No LinkedIn presence. The invoice shows an address in Bellevue. That Saturday I drive there. It's a WeWork building. I check the directory through the glass doors. Cascade Strategic isn't listed. I sit in my car for 20 minutes staring at that building. Then I open a new encrypted folder on my phone and start documenting everything. Not for revenge, for protection. Preston forwards me a payment batch at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday in August. Need your signature before end of business. I open it. 20 vendors, $430,000 total. Most are familiar, 4 aren't. Cascade Strategic, $22,500. Summit Advisory Group, $18,000. Precision Consulting Partners, $15,000. Vanguard Business Solutions, $12,000. All round numbers, all vague descriptions. Professional services rendered. I call Preston. Voicemail. I text. Can't approve without backup documentation. He texts back immediately. Already verified. Just need your signature. I call him. He answers on the 4th ring. Cal? I already spent an hour verifying these. Then 30 more minutes won't hurt. You're creating bottlenecks. This is exactly the problem. Proper financial controls aren't problems. The bank needs this processed by close of business. Then they'll get it Monday after I verify. Just sign it. No. He hangs up. I sit at my desk staring at the spreadsheet. Something feels wrong. Not just the vague invoices. The timing, the pressure, the pattern. 20 minutes later, my email pings. Automated notification from our bank. Payment batch processed. $430,000 disbursed. I check the approval record. Preston's signature only. Our operating agreement requires 2 signatures over $50,000. He just violated it. I screenshot everything. Email it to my personal account. That night, I start building what I'll later realize is my exit file. I don't confront Preston about the unauthorized payment. I watch. Over the next 12 weeks, I track every payment flowing through our accounts. Not officially. I can't access the systems anymore. But I'm still copied on bank confirmations. Cascade Strategic bills $22,500 monthly. September, October, November. Same amount, same day. Never $22,000 or $23,000. Exactly $2,500. Summit Advisory bills $18,000. Precision bills $15,000. Vanguard bills $12,000. All recurring, all perfectly round numbers, all with minimal documentation. I cross-reference their addresses using public business registration databases. 3 share the same Delaware registered agent. 2 list addresses at UPS stores. 1 address looks familiar. I check my notes. It's the UPS store on 148th in Bellevue, 2 blocks from my gym. On a Saturday morning in October, I drive there. Walk in. Ask the clerk if I can mail something to Suite 247, the suite number from Cascade's invoice. That's just a mailbox, she says. You need to address it to whoever rents it. Who rents 247? Can't tell you that, privacy policy. I thank her and leave. Sit in my car for 90 minutes watching. No one collects mail from box 247. These companies don't exist. They're shells. Preston's running money through fake vendors. The question is why? The question is where it's actually going. I photograph the storefront. Time-stamped, GPS tagged. Add it to my encrypted file. November brings whispers I'm not supposed to hear. Our project manager mentions Preston said I'm resistant to change. Our lead developer tells me Preston called me stuck in old thinking. No one's hostile. They're just confused. For 5 years, Preston and I operated as one unit. Preston's building a narrative. I'm the obstacle now. The guy who doesn't understand growth. On November 18th, a calendar invite appears. Executive Strategy Session, Q4 Planning. Mandatory for all department heads. My name isn't on it. I walk to Preston's office. Think I got left off the strategy meeting. He barely glances up. That's sales and marketing focus, not really relevant for you. The CFO's invited. Connor's presenting operational updates. I don't push, just nod and leave. The meeting runs 3 hours. I hear about it from 4 people. Preston presented a restructuring plan. New org chart. Realigned responsibilities. My position wasn't on the chart. That night, I update my resume for the first time in 6 years. Not because I'm quitting, because I know what's coming. I also back up every file I legally own. Every spreadsheet I built before Wade Industries existed. Every system I developed independently. Every methodology document that's mine, not the company's. Preston thinks he's maneuvering me out. He doesn't realize I've been documenting his every move. Preston announces our new CFO at Monday's all-hands meeting, and my stomach drops before he says the name. Leland Cho will be taking over financial operations. Callum's transitioning to an advisory role focusing on special projects. Special projects, code for nothing. Leland's 28, 2 years out of USC Marshall, wearing an expensive suit that still looks new. After the meeting, he finds me. I've heard incredible things about your systems, excited to learn. I spend 3 weeks training him, show him our accounting software configuration, explain cash flow forecasting, walk him through vendor payment procedures. He's sharp, takes detailed notes, asks smart questions. Then one afternoon in late December, he pulls me into an empty conference room. His hands are shaking. Can I ask you something confidential? Sure. Some of these vendor invoices don't have backup documentation. Cascade, Summit, a few others. There's no contracts, no scope of work, just invoices that auto-pay. His fear is visible. What did Preston say when you asked? Said they're strategic partners, said not to worry about them. Then that's your answer. But that's not how it should work, right? Based on what you built. I meet his eyes. No, that's not how it should work. He wants me to do something, but he's 28 and this is his first CFO role. Document everything you see, I tell him. Keep clean records. He nods but doesn't look reassured. The HR meeting request appears in my calendar with no warning. Personnel discussion, confidential. January 8th, 2 p.m. When I arrive, 3 people are waiting. Nicole from HR, Preston, and an attorney I've never met. Woman in her 50s, leather portfolio, that specific energy attorneys have before delivering bad news. We need to discuss organizational alignment, Nicole begins. The attorney opens her portfolio. We've received feedback about collaboration challenges and resistance to company evolution. I keep my face neutral. What specific issues? They list them. Creating approval bottlenecks, resistant to new processes, management style conflicts with culture, professional HR language for "you're in the way." The attorney slides papers across the table. We're offering a transition package, 2-month severance, COBRA through March, final equity distribution. I read it. Severance is $28,000. The equity distribution shows $51,000 total. My 30% ownership is now listed as 4.7% based on capital contribution adjustments. I look at Preston. He's studying his phone. This isn't accurate, I say calmly. The original operating agreement specifies 30% equity. The agreement was amended in September per member vote, the attorney says. I never voted on any amendment. Your lack of objection constituted approval. I wasn't even invited to a meeting in September. I need time to review with my attorney. Preston looks up. You have until Friday to sign. That night, I spread everything across my dining table, and the picture becomes crystal clear. Preston's distribution spreadsheet shows my equity diluted 3 ways I never approved. A capital recalibration in September. A founder distribution adjustment in October. A partnership rebalancing in November. According to his numbers, I own 4.7% of a company valued at $2.2 million. My buyout, $51,000. I pull up my original files, the real operating agreement, the actual capital account statements, the unmodified partnership structure. According to the real numbers, I own 30% of a company currently valued around $3.1 million, based on our revenue and recent industry multiples. My equity is worth $930,000. But here's what makes Preston's spreadsheet fascinating. For his math to work, For my ownership to shrink that dramatically, nearly $500,000 had to disappear from the company through channels that don't exist in official records. The fake vendors aren't just moving money. They're the mechanism for hiding Preston's theft. His falsified distribution requires the fraud to exist. He documented his own crime while trying to cheat me. I take screenshots of everything, upload copies to 3 cloud services, email encrypted versions to myself, print hard copies for my safe deposit box at Chase. Then I call an attorney who specializes in LLC disputes. This isn't over. Friday morning, I walk into Preston's office and place the signed termination agreement on his desk. His eyebrows shoot up. You signed it? Clean break. I hand him my building access card, laptop, and corporate Amex, like you wanted. He leans back, shoulders visibly relaxing. I appreciate you being mature about this, Cal. Really, most people would make this ugly. No point. Exactly, it's just business. He stands, extends his hand. We shake. He actually smiles. You'll land on your feet, you're good at what you do. He walks me to the elevator. As the doors close, I see him check his phone, already moving on to the next thing. He thinks he won. Thinks he pushed me out, covered his tracks, and secured the money. He has no idea what I just signed. The termination agreement accepts my separation and severance, but it doesn't release him from fraud, doesn't waive my right to sue for breach of fiduciary duty, and definitely doesn't legitimize a distribution calculation based on stolen money. That night, I sleep better than I have in 8 months. My attorney is already drafting the documents that will change everything. Preston thinks this story is over. It's just beginning. The first week after leaving, I don't plot revenge, I organize evidence. I spend mornings building timelines, connecting dots, mapping patterns. May 2024, first shell vendor appears. June, my approvals get restricted. July, 3 more shells start billing. September, fake amendment supposedly happens. November, I'm phased out. January, terminated. It's methodical. Planned, not random. I cross-reference the company's official bank statements with my personal records. Between May and December, $467,000 flowed to vendors that don't exist. Official books Preston maintains now show those as legitimate expenses. My original records show those vendors didn't exist when I was running operations. I build a spreadsheet. Vendor name, invoice amount, business address, verification status. Cascade Strategic, $22,500 monthly. UPS store mailbox, no active state business registration. Summit Advisory, $18,000 monthly. Shares, registered agent with 2 other shells. No website, no employees, no verifiable presence. Precision Consulting, $15,000 monthly. Virtual office address. No work product anyone can identify. 4 more vendors with identical patterns. All round numbers. All recurring, none verifiable. Total, $467,000 in 8 months. I save everything to encrypted drives. Back it up 3 places. Then my phone rings. Seattle area code I don't recognize. Callum Bridger? This is Andrea Voss with Pathway Financial Consulting. Andrea's voice is professional, careful. Julian Brooks gave me your name, said you might be available for short-term consulting work. Julian's an old colleague. Good guy. Ran finance at a firm I worked with 4 years ago. What kind of project? Restructuring vendor payment systems for a client. They need someone who understands internal controls and documentation standards. 3 months, mostly remote. $150 per hour. It's not glamorous, but it's immediate income. And after Preston's chaos, boring sounds perfect. I start February 1st at a mid-sized software company in Redmond. Smaller than Wade Industries, more careful. They actually follow approval processes. They actually document vendor relationships. 6 weeks in, Andrea stops by my temporary desk. Can I ask you something? You worked at Wade Industries, right? Until January. Did you build their financial systems? From scratch. She nods. Their name came up in a compliance discussion. How did they handle vendor documentation while you were there? Something in her tone makes me cautious. Every vendor required verified registration, detailed contracts, and clear scopes of work. That was the standard I built. Toward the end, that changed. Changed how? I was removed from vendor approvals. Can't speak to what happened after. But you documented the proper standards? Those standards are my intellectual property. I developed them independently. Would you share them? Just the framework? I pause for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, I can send templates. That night I email her my vendor approval checklist, contract verification protocol, and payment authorization workflow. Everything Preston stopped following. 2 days later she calls. These are comprehensive, really thorough. Can you show me what proper documentation looks like versus insufficient? I understand what she's really asking. I can create a comparison, hypothetical examples. That would be extremely helpful. I spend 3 hours building a side-by-side document, and it's the most dangerous thing I've ever created. Left column, proper vendor file, state business registration, LLC formation documents. Detailed service agreement, specific deliverables, progress billing tied to milestones, verified physical address. Right column, insufficient vendor file, no business registration, PO box address, vague invoices, round number payments, no verifiable work product. I don't name Wade Industries, just show patterns. I send it to Andrea at 11 p.m. She calls me at 7:30 a.m. This is exactly what I needed. Are you willing to talk to someone else about these standards? My pulse quickens. Though. Someone reviewing vendor management protocols for regulatory purposes. State regulators? They might reach out directly. 2 days later, an email arrives from an attorney at the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions. Subject, consultation request, LLC financial controls. They want to schedule a paid consultation about proper vendor management in private companies. I stare at that email for 5 full minutes. Once I agree to this call, there's no going back. Once I talk to regulators, I'm not just a disgruntled ex-employee. I'm a witness. I reply with one word, available. The call is scheduled for March 4th. I sit back and realize what's happening. Someone's already investigating Wade Industries. Andrea wasn't asking random questions. She was building a case, and I just gave them the roadmap to Preston's fraud. The consultation call has 3 people on the line, and I know immediately this isn't routine. 2 attorneys from the Department of Financial Institutions, 1 investigator from the state auditor's office. They introduce themselves with titles, not names. We're reviewing industry standards for vendor management in privately held LLCs, the lead attorney begins. In your experience, what should proper documentation include? I walk them through it methodically. Business registration verification, detailed contracts with specific scopes, deliverable-based billing, verified business addresses. What would insufficient documentation look like? No verifiable business presence. Vague invoices, round number recurring payments, no supporting contracts. Would those patterns indicate potential issues? I choose my words carefully. They'd indicate either negligent management or intentional concealment. Long pause. If you established proper controls at a company and then saw those patterns emerge, what would you conclude? That someone was deliberately bypassing the controls. Would you document that? I did document it. That's my professional obligation. Another pause. Are those documents yours or the company's property? The methodology is mine. I developed it before the company existed. The observations are factual records. Would you provide copies if formally requested through legal channels? This is the moment. This is the decision that changes everything. Yes, if formally requested, I'll provide everything. The call ends 3 minutes later. I sit in my home office, staring at nothing, processing what just happened. Preston has no idea regulators are building a case. He has no idea I'm cooperating. He has no idea what's coming. My phone buzzes. Preston's name? I let it ring. Preston calls 4 times in 2 hours. On the 5th call I answer. Callum. His voice has that forced casual energy. Hey, something weird's happening with our banking. Transactions got flat flagged for routine review. They're asking about vendor documentation from last year. Figured you might have backup files. My heart pounds but my voice stays steady. What vendors? Cascade, Summit, Precision. The consulting partners. You remember them. I returned all company property when I left. Right, but you built the systems. You must have templates, methodology documents, anything showing how verification worked. Those templates are my intellectual property. Cal, come on, this is important. Banks holding up our credit line. What kind of documentation do they need? Contracts, scopes, deliverables, standard stuff, but the files are incomplete. I wasn't involved in those vendor approvals. You removed me from that process in June. Silence. Then, this is from before June. Then the documentation should be in your systems. It's not complete. I need your help explaining how everything was verified. I can't speak to verification I didn't perform, Preston. I'm consulting elsewhere now. His voice hardens. Regulators might contact you. If they do, I need you to explain everything was properly handled. If regulators contact me, I'll answer their questions honestly. Honestly meaning what? Honestly meaning I'll describe the approval processes I built and what documentation should exist. Cal, is there anything else? Heavy breathing. Don't do this. Do what? Tell the truth? He hangs up. My hands shake, but not from fear. From relief. Preston just confirmed regulators are already investigating, and he's panicking. Over the next week, my phone becomes a weapon aimed at me. 7 calls from Wade Industries numbers. Leland, Nicole, Connor, Preston 3 more times. An attorney I don't know. I don't answer any of them. Texts flood in. Call ASAP. Urgent matter. Legal implications if you don't cooperate. I forward every threatening message to my attorney. She sends a cease and desist letter. Mr. Bridger is under no obligation to assist Wade Industries with regulatory inquiries. Further harassment will be documented and addressed. The messages stop. But the silence feels worse. On March 15th, an email arrives from a Gmail address I don't recognize. Subject, we need to talk. It's from Preston. Personal email. Callum, I know things ended badly. I'm sorry about how it went down. But this is bigger than us now. Regulators froze accounts. Banks pulled credit lines. Payrolls delayed. People are scared. If you talk to investigators, you need to fix this. Call me. I read it 3 times. Then delete it. 2 days later, Julian calls. You hear about Wade Industries? What about them? State auditors showed up. Full financial review. Word is they're investigating vendor fraud. Your old company's in serious trouble. That's unfortunate. Cal, did you know about this? I knew their vendor documentation didn't meet standards. Did you tell regulators? I answered questions I was asked, honestly. Julian whistles. Preston must be losing his mind. He has no idea how right he is. The formal audit begins March 20th and it's not dramatic. No raids, no cameras, just 3 auditors in business casual requesting documents. Wade Industries must provide complete vendor files for all payments over $5,000 in the past 18 months. 20 business days to comply. I know this because word spreads fast in professional networks. Julian hears it through accounting circles. They want contracts, registrations, scopes of work, proof of services rendered, he tells me. For every vendor. Standard audit procedure. Yeah, but their vendors aren't responding, can't produce documentation because they don't exist. Over 3 weeks, Wade Industries tries to comply. They submit what they have. It's insufficient, because half their vendor files are empty. Cascade Strategic doesn't respond to auditors. Summit Advisory's registered agent says the LLC dissolved. Precision Consulting's address is a UPS store with no record of them. On April 10th, the Washington State Department of Revenue places a hold on Wade Industries accounts. Every transaction over $10,000 requires approval. Payroll delays 4 days. Staff panics. LinkedIn profiles get updated. Resumes circulate. 3 senior people quit. Preston posts on the company Slack about bureaucratic overreach and continuing normal operations. But everyone sees what's happening. The company's collapsing in slow motion. My phone buzzes. Preston again. This time I answer. Callum, I need your help. Really need it. I can't help you, Preston. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them documentation existed but got lost during a system migration. I wasn't involved in those approvals. You removed me. Before that, the payments you approved. Some were proper, some weren't. I flagged the improper ones. You overrode me. People are gonna lose jobs over this. Good people. You're right. They didn't do anything wrong. So help me fix it. You fired me with falsified equity calculations. You stole $500,000 through shell companies. Now you want me to lie to regulators? Silence. I answered questions honestly, provided documentation I legally own, didn't fabricate anything. That's all. You destroyed my company. No, you destroyed your company. I just didn't help you hide it. I hang up. 2 hours after hanging up on Preston, an email arrives from Nicole in HR. Subject, internal review, voluntary participation. Callum, we're reviewing 2024 operational procedures. Would you be available for a compensated interview? My attorney advises declining. Too risky. But I agree anyway. Because I want Wade Industries to hear the truth directly. The meeting happens April 18th at a Marriott in Bellevue. Neutral ground. Nicole, Leland, and 2 attorneys I've never seen. We're trying to understand vendor approval processes, one attorney begins. What controls existed, and whether they were followed. I walk them through everything. The verification checklist, dual signature requirements, documentation standards, the red flags I raised, the times Preston overrode procedure. Did you document your concerns? Yes, multiple times. Do you still have those documents? Yes. The attorneys exchange glances. Were you involved in approving payments to Cascade Strategic, Summit Advisory, or Precision Consulting? No, those appeared after I was removed from approvals. I flagged them as problematic. Preston told me to stay out of it. Did you believe they were legitimate? No, I believed they were shells. The room goes silent. Leland looks sick. Did you tell Preston that? Yes. He called me paranoid and rigid. The lead attorney clears her throat. If offered reinstatement with full operational control, would you consider returning? I don't hesitate. No, not even with substantial compensation and a board seat? No. Why not? Because the damage is permanent, the scrutiny won't disappear, and I won't spend 2 years rebuilding what someone else destroyed. Nicole speaks quietly. We're prepared to offer $180,000 base, 20% equity, full financial oversight. It's more than double my old salary. I'm not interested. Thank you. The meeting ends. I walk out feeling lighter than I have in months. 3 hours later, Julian calls. Wade Industries just announced layoffs, 15 people. CFO resigned, 2 other executives gone. It's imploding. That's rough. Preston's still there, barely hanging on. The next morning, I receive an email. Final audit report, confidential. I open it and read every word. The audit report is 47 pages of professional language that destroys Preston completely. Multiple vendor payments totaling $467,500 made to entities with insufficient documentation and unverifiable business operations. Payments processed in violation of established internal controls. Pattern of round number invoicing and documentation gaps indicate potential financial misconduct requiring investigation and possible law enforcement referral. They don't say fraud. They don't need to. Every problematic vendor is listed. Every payment. Every approval signature. Preston's name on every transaction. Once he removed me from approvals, he became the sole signature. He documented his own crimes. The findings trigger Wade Industries' bank covenants. New requirements get imposed. Monthly reporting. Independent financial monitor. Every transaction over $5,000 gets reviewed. The company isn't shut down, but it's neutered. Every decision requires approval now. Every payment gets scrutinized. Investors demand leadership changes. Emergency board meeting scheduled for April 28th. Preston tries to blame me. Posts on LinkedIn about disgruntled former employees' manufacturing crises. Tells staff I sabotaged the company. But documents have dates. Signatures are his. Timeline is clear. I didn't manufacture anything. I maintained proper records and answered questions honestly. On May 2nd, Preston Wade resigns. The press release uses careful language about pursuing other opportunities and fresh leadership. But everyone knows what it means. His reputation is destroyed. He'll never raise capital again. Never run another company. Never be trusted with other people's money. His name is poison now. Wade Industries survives barely. The board brings in a turnaround specialist who cuts 40% of staff. Leland reaches out. I should have listened. I'm sorry. I reply simply, you were in an impossible position. The state refers findings to federal authorities. Criminal charges possible if they prove intent. But that's not my concern anymore. 3 days after Preston's resignation, one final email arrives. Subject line blank. How did you know? I stare at Preston's email for a full minute before responding. I didn't need to know everything. I just kept proper records and answered questions honestly. You destroyed yourself. I didn't help you hide it. I send it. Block his email. Delete his contact. He calls the next morning from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answer. Callum. His voice sounds hollow. I read your email. Okay. That's really how you see it? I destroyed myself? You asked how I knew, I answered. You could have warned me. Talked to me privately instead of going to regulators. I tried talking to you. You called me rigid, removed my access, fired me. Silence. then quieter. I was just moving money faster. Business was growing, cash flow was tight, shell vendors were temporary solutions. Solutions to what? Investors wanted profitability. I needed lower expenses on paper, so I moved some compensation off books, paid myself and Connor through consulting firms, made margins look better. There it is, tax fraud, investor fraud, hiding compensation to inflate profitability metrics. That's not temporary, that's systematic fraud. I was gonna fix it before any audit, but you talked to regulators and everything accelerated. I answered questions I was legally asked. You could have refused. Yes, but I didn't. More silence. I'm facing criminal charges. Probably. Was it worth it? Destroying what we built? I didn't destroy anything. You did that 6 months before you fired me. I just documented it properly. He hangs up without responding. I sit in my home office, watching Seattle rain, feeling nothing except tired finality. That's the last conversation Preston and I will ever have. Wade Industries survives, but barely resembles what we built. The board brings in Angela Brennan, a turnaround specialist with a reputation for fixing disasters. She cuts staff 40%, cancels expensive projects, refocuses on core operations, brings in outside accountants to rebuild controls from scratch. Leland becomes interim CFO. He emails asking if I'll consult on rebuilding vendor systems. I can send templates, but I'm not coming back. Templates would help tremendously. I send everything. Verification checklists, approval workflows, contract templates, documentation standards. Use these exactly. I write, they work. The investigation continues. State refers to federal authorities. Criminal charges likely if they prove intentional fraud. But that's not my problem anymore. Today, I'm director of financial operations at a tech firm in Kirkland. We build project management software. Not glamorous, but clean. In my interview, the CEO asked, "Why did you leave Wade Industries?" They stopped following proper financial controls. I couldn't be part of that. She nodded. That won't happen here. We value people who do things right. 6 months in, I've rebuilt their entire vendor management system. Everything I learned from watching Preston destroy controls. This time, leadership actually follows them. My new desk has a locked drawer containing one document. The falsified distribution spreadsheet Preston gave me that last day. The one showing my $930,000 equity stake as $51,000 while hiding $467,000 in fraud. I keep it not as a trophy. As a reminder, numbers tell stories if you read them carefully. Quiet people who build proper systems hold more power than charismatic people who break them. Documentation is protection. Preston thought removing me would cover his crimes, thought I was operational background. Easy to dismiss, easy to silence. He was wrong. The systems I built didn't just make his company work. They documented everything. When he bypassed those systems to commit fraud, the absence of documentation exposed him more effectively than any accusation. I didn't destroy Preston Wade. His shortcuts destroy him. I just kept proper records. Last week I heard through Julian that federal prosecutors filed charges. Wire fraud, tax evasion, investor fraud. Preston faces 8 years if convicted. Connor took a plea deal, testified against Preston for probation. Wade Industries exists smaller, careful, under permanent scrutiny. And me, I come to work. Build systems. Go home. Sleep well. Because I learned the best revenge isn't dramatic. It's documentation. Truth doesn't need performance, just proper records and someone willing to keep them. Sometimes in meetings at my new company, someone will ask why I'm so insistent on documentation standards, why I require 2 signatures, why I verify every vendor personally. I never tell them about Preston, never mention Wade Industries. I just say, because proper controls prevent problems before they start. Last month, our CEO pulled me aside. "Callum, I heard rumors about your previous company, something about an audit that went bad." I kept my face neutral. The company had documentation issues. I wasn't involved anymore when things escalated. She studied me for a moment. "But you saw it coming." "I saw patterns that concerned me." "And you documented them." "I documented everything." "That's my job." She smiled. "That's why you're here." My phone rarely rings with unknown numbers anymore, but last Tuesday, one came through. I almost didn't answer. "Callum Bridger?" A woman's voice, professional. "This is Special Agent Taurus, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. We're reviewing evidence in USA versus Preston Wade. Your name appears in our investigation. Would you be available to provide testimony if this goes to trial? Yes, thank you. We'll be in touch. She hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot processing that conversation. 6 years ago, Preston and I shook hands in a coffee shop and built a company. For 5 years, we were partners. Then he decided to cut corners, hide money, push me out. He thought removing me would protect him. Instead, it exposed everything. Because the quiet guy who built the systems, who documented every process, who kept proper records, that guy was the only thing standing between Preston and complete exposure. The moment I left, the documentation gaps became obvious. The missing controls became visible. The fraud became undeniable. Preston didn't just lose a business partner when he forced me out. He lost the person covering his tracks without even realizing it. That's the real story here. Not revenge. Consequence. I drive home, make dinner, sleep well. Tomorrow I'll go back to work, build more systems, maintain more records. Because in the end, the spreadsheets always tell the truth. You just have to know how to read them.